Right, that the report as a whole be adopted. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. So the social housing, obviously this is the report back of the hearings panel and comes with a raft of recommendations, which I think there might be a few minor changes being sought to. Phil?
Can I just start on page 221, 7.2.1, that in the second line we substitute the word part of for a proportion of?
Yep.
Council, so, yep.
You're okay with that, Chris? You
yes.
got that? I'm just making sure that they... Yep.
And then, Vicky, I just want to check
Sorry, Phil.
Sorry.
A proportion of? Yep.
Correct.
A proportion, was it,
Yes.
or a portion?
A proportion.
Proportion.
That's in the legal
Yeah,
document.
yeah, yep, right.
And I just want to check, it just seems to me if at the end of that paragraph 7.2.1, if we can also add, in terms of the accord, or any other council land, does that fit?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
So
it's
I'd
covered
like
in
that
the
to be added there too, please.
Draft of,
so at the
redraft
yeah.
of the accord. Right, which we
Thank
deal
you.
with in a minute. And then I think you also had that the council's contribution to the entity contained in the housing accord in line 1, 7.21.
Yes.
Did you want to add that?
Yes, we can.
Right, the
please.
council's contribution to the entity contained in the housing accord.
And then the other addition I've got is under 7.2.3, that in the last line of that, it goes that any surplus is reinvested in council's social housing. Is that going to fit?
No, because the surplus some surplus may go to the entity, so that becomes the entity's social housing as well.
Okay, I can leave it at that. There are some other, while I'm speaking, perhaps there's some other suggestions I've got, and that is that under 7.2.2, we take out although it says two options were discussed, that we actually take out the rebate part, so delete were.
We can just delete that if you like. It's just really
delete that. I think if we delete all that, probably is easiest.
That's just seeking. Yeah, no, we've just taken it out.
No. So we just delete the one, you mean?
Well, it's just really a note of what was discussed, and it's just seeking clarity, which will arrive anyway.
Just we're going to keep the land option.
Can I just,
okay.
Yep, keep the land option.
Right.
Can I just raise I'm
Well,
really.
wait a minute. I've got other speakers.
Sorry, it will be delete the word to, and it will be an option discussed.
It was just a procedural issue.
Yes.
I just wonder, given that there's going to be some amendments to this, whether there's something we could sort out over lunch and deal with when we come back, and deal with some of the other stuff that was less kind of big. Because I mean, that was just a suggestion.
Okay, I thought we might be finished before lunch. I'm obviously optimistic, am I? Okay. No, just a minute. I've acknowledged Andrew and then Glenn. I'm going to go through to 1 o'clock anyway and just see how far we get, because I think most of these things have been sorted out, Yanni. Andrew?
Okay, so in the supplementary agenda, there's a clause 4.2 on page 34. It is yet to be confirmed by MB that the proposed entity will be capable of meeting the requirements for registration as a community housing provider, or that it will have access to the government's income-related rent scheme for current tenants. Now, clearly the whole point of establishing the entity is so that we can take advantage of the IRRS. So I'd like to also add that clause 4.2 from the supplementary agenda into the recommendations here. Because we wouldn't want to do any of this work if it didn't land in a position where we were able to take advantage of the IRRS.
Yep. So it's... right, yes. Okay, so did you want it in here or in the supplementary?
No, I want it here. It's already in the supplementary, but I want it here as well.
Okay, fine. So Chris, if you look at 4.2 on page 304, can you just add that in as a 7.27? Is that right, Andrew?
Yes, so that we make everything we're agreeing to here subject to the
Right.
confirmation that it's capable of getting the IRA.
It's because otherwise it's not.
Otherwise, the whole thing becomes a pointless exercise.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Right.
the other thing I'd like to do, where we've got this note on page 24, the hearings panel notes the preferred option of the majority of the submitters. I'd like to strengthen that to be something that we actually, rather than just noting, something that we actually put there as part of the what we're adopting.
So do you want that included in what page you?
So 7.4.3 is followed by a paragraph. So this is on page 222. The hearings panel notes that the preferred option of the majority of the submitters was the. I think what we need to do is to have council noting that
Right.
as well. We just need to strengthen that. So if we could make that a 7.4.4.
You need the word requesting before capital injection. That was just the request.
Okay, can I just deal with the first one? So 7.4.4 on page 222 becomes the council and the hearings panel note.
Notes, yeah,
Right.
and it becomes a proper paragraph rather than just
And
an
it's
extra note.
7.4.4. You got that, Chris? Okay. Right.
Before
Okay.
requesting a capital injection.
And sorry, where are you now, Pauline?
Same paragraph. Last line, preferred option of submitters was
Right.
requesting a capital injection.
Right. Okay. So 7.4.4, Chris, just becomes the paragraph below, but it says the council and the hearings panel note. And everything then, except down to second to last line, the second preferred option of submitters was requesting a capital injection. Right?
So would the action from that, Vicky, be from the housing subcommittee to act on that, or would we do that now?
Isn't by way of action on 7.4.4?
Requesting a capital injection from the central government.
Would that come from the housing subcommittee, perhaps, or whatever it is?
Well, so what we're adopting is actually the entity.
Yes, but requesting the capital injection.
The council note that was the option. That's not the option that we're going with. The option that we're adopting is the one that the majority of that. Yeah. You can do that within the framework of the housing accord. Yeah. Okay. Any other changes? Right. Jimmy?
If we review the page on 221 and the page on 223, the 7.1, the third bullet point in here, the last sentence, one specify the at least to provision of 1,000 additional units. But in page 221 in here, they didn't mention what's the rationale.
There was, as you recall from the earlier stuff, there was
Yes.
total agreement from the hearings panel on additional units. They didn't want to say 1,000 or 950 or 1,100.
That additional is exclude the government 700 or
No.
including the government.
So no, this is what's come back from the hearings panel.
Yes.
It's their recommendations. Among the hearings panel,
Yeah.
they didn't want to tie it down to 1,000.
Okay.
They wanted, or 900 or
Oh,
720.
yeah.
They just put additional units. So it's a change from where it was earlier,
Okay.
a minor change.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are we right? Andrew?
Yeah, just questioning where my comment about paragraph 4.2 ended up. I just need to see it on the screen. just to
So
make sure we
sorry,
got
it's
that
right. It's right here at 7.4.4. That
Yeah,
one?
so the part about...
Oh, sorry. Was that not done either?
So it's yet to be confirmed by MB blah blah
Sorry.
blah. Council confirms it would not establish the entity or make social housing assets available to it without such confirmation.
Right.
Can we not
so-
add that into
yes,
the...
Yes, sorry, my
So
bad.
that might need to be 7.4.5, and I'd suggest changing the wording of the last sentence. Council confirms that it would not establish the entity or make social housing assets available to it without such confirmation.
Can
I think that covers it then.
we just, that fundamental to the establishment of the entity is the access to the IRRS.
Yeah, I think that's it. Council
Yep.
confirms that it would not establish the entity or make social housing assets available to it without such confirmation. That covers
Right.
it, doesn't it?
Right, okay. Thank you. Yep, clear? I'm on all sorts of things. What would you like, Jamie?
You don't mind questions now, or if it's additions or anything I can wait?
Can we just get all these potential amendments
Yeah,
sorted,
yeah,
and then
no,
we'll
I'm
come to
happy with that.
questions? Phil, you've got another one?
Just scroll back up to 7.2.1. I just want to check the wording there, please. Yeah, no, that's
Okay,
good.
you
Thank
good?
you.
Glenn, you good? Good. Good. Questions? Jamie?
It was really two sort of main ones. One was around the 15 million that you've got there from the red zone property. I just wondered if perhaps staff could provide a bit more detail around exactly what that's going to look like. I'm just a wee bit unclear on that.
Actually, all that's being
7.2.2.
asked is that we clarify that issue. It's been raised as a question. It was raised as an issue. It was raised as a question by one of the submitters. And so all we want to know, we don't even know that that is actually ever minuted in the council books. So we just want clarity so that we know what the situation is. And then once we know it, how do we resolve it, or do we resolve not to?
It's tricky to ratify though when there's still question marks hanging around
Okay,
that.
so it says clarify the issue actually.
Yeah. So we're making a decision before we have clarity around that. That's the only thing that I'm just a wee bit...
No,
dubious
no,
about.
this is within the council's own finances. This does not impact on the housing accord or the creation of an entity.
Okay,
This
so-
is the taking of 113 residential red zone units. The money was put in apparently, perhaps, I don't know, to the cost share arrangement.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean
So
there.
it's
Okay.
just clarifying the issue. It may not be an issue, Jamie, and it's not something
Okay,
that's
one
holding us
that
back.
may be more of an issue for me though is that what I'm really struggling with is the 7.2.1 contained in the housing accord comprises up to 50 million from a portion of blah blah blah. You can read it all there. I find that really vague. What exactly is that 50 million going to look like? Where is it going to come from? It's just that there's too many assumptions, I guess, in there. Where is that actually coming from? I don't understand that, and I don't think that's spelled out in 7.2.1.
From a proportion, so it comes from social housing, either land from social housing, potentially other land. It doesn't come from any cash, and it doesn't come from rates.
But there's no business case around that. I don't know if it's possible. It's just there's a lot of ands and possibly and that sort of thing. It feels, it doesn't feel very tangible or concrete.
So the council has a large portfolio of social housing. And if you look at the changes on page 3.11, that section of the housing accord says the council will progressively capitalise the entity or entities with an injection of 50 million of land and other assets. And there are two possibilities. One is land and or social housing, transferring from social housing, Christchurch City Council, to the new entity which is about social housing. The other possibility is that the surplus that's made in the entity could form part of, and this is in the supplementary, could form part of the capitalisation of that entity from the City Council. So
I get the intent of it, and I see our CFO's just popped up here, but what worries me around this is this it can't be taken lightly, and just when I hear words like could and possibly, it makes me nervous because I just want something a bit more tangible, and I need that as a decision maker. I wonder if maybe Peter could clarify or give me some comfort there.
So, yep, I'm very happy to ask Peter.
If that's okay.
But the very clear intention is that rates, like social housing, is not rates funded, that it doesn't become rates funding, but that it also doesn't
I
fund
appreciate
rates.
that, but
Yep.
if we don't have anything concrete there, it's hard for me to
Okay.
have in my mind an assurance that that won't be the case.
I just wanted to clarify on the rates issue, and particularly around or any other council land. So that if it's other council land that we've got in budget to sell, then we're expecting to get that as a revenue through. And that is, if we did not do that and transferred that land instead to the housing portfolio would have an impact on rates. So only in that instance would it have a rates impact.
Except perhaps if there is $15 million that's transferred out of social housing. So that's why it's important to clarify.
That second point,
Yep,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why those possibilities were left there.
The thing is, though, it's still not a business case, though. It's a list of assumptions that say, hey, everything should be cool. No,
sorry.
question.
No. Okay, so is the question...
The question is there a business case, and can we have something more concrete than assumptions?
Sorry, do you want to answer it, or do you want me to?
From my perspective, it stays very nicely within the social housing portfolio. It has no impact on rates if the other council land isn't considered. If the other council land is in 7.2.1, then it has the potential to impact on rates, and whether it does or not is a wee bit tied to 7.2.2.
Yeah.
I think 7.2.2 could be clarified in its own right. Outside of the need to have that last 3 or 4 words in 7.2.1.
Okay, so would you like to suggest a change in that? Or I mean, that's obviously what the hearings panel has suggested.
Or, it's not a decree.
Okay, shall we put, because the hearings panel was very clear on this, that the intention is that social housing is ring-fenced, and that rates do not subsidise social housing, and social housing does not subsidise rates. That was our clear intention throughout the hearings, because a number of people came and had assumed that actually rates funded social housing for its 70 years. So we were keen to dispel that myth, and would it be more helpful if we put that as a 7.2.1? That the intention, because that was quite clear throughout the hearings panel, that the intention is that social housing does not subsidise rates, and rates does not subsidise social housing. Is that a fair thing to put? Yes, additional 7.2.1 and then renumber. Is that okay? Okay. So does that clarify your point?
Sort of. I guess the only problem I've got with it is it sort of comes into that land when, if someone says, at a governance level, and then goes on to say a whole lot of micromanagement type things, just because you say at a governance level beforehand doesn't make it.
Okay.
So my fear is that just by saying
Okay,
that it's ring-fenced, it then doesn't give the how, though. It says that, in broad terms it could, but we don't have a business, anyway, you get where I'm going.
Well, okay, just to make it really clear, shall we put, or any other council land subject to the determination of 7.2.2? Would that be sensible? So that if 15 million worth of social housing assets have gone to rates, then we might need to find a way to address that. Such that social housing is not subsidised by ratepayers, and that and that it does not subsidise rates. Okay, is this going to get too difficult? Yanni.
I just want to raise.
Right, sorry. Or any other council land subject, so we're at the bottom of 7.2.1 now, Chris, subject to the clarification of 7.2.2.
Can we, do we need units, the words after that, scheduled for demolition or indent, do we need those words in there? Because would that be restricting us to only use those?
Or with units, yes, I think it could come out. We don't need them.
Yeah, so delete that after units.
Sorry, just come back up. 7.2.2.
With either bare land or with units, after that.
And then delete scheduled for demolition or intensification.
Yep.
Okay. Social remains. So just in 7.2.1, it should read, the intention is that the social housing fund, social housing, the council's social housing, is not subsidised by ratepayers. The social housing continues to be not subsidised by ratepayers. That's not very good English, is it? We'll fix that. And it does not subsidise rates. Is that okay?
That first new additional just worries me. It's the operational aspects of social housing, but I just don't quite understand in 7.2.1 what that does in terms of things like development contributions, what it does for things like, if you take the central city, for example, if we built social housing, we're given private developers rate subsidies around DCs, but we wouldn't do it for our social housing. So it doesn't seem to make much sense to me. I think the key thing for me is that the operational aspects of social housing.
Well, no, the capital aspects as well actually haven't been subsidised by rates.
My understanding from when the social housing was first built, that it actually was part of the justification.
No, it was actually an injection from the government, I think. Remember those days? It was 1938.
So can I just ask a question of staff, what this means in terms of practice? Because there are other things that we do as a council that do provide subsidies to housing developments, and are we cutting off
So
the sorts of...
do you want to say that council social housing?
Well, I just think the phrase subsidised by ratepayers is so wide and doesn't really make much sense when we're trying to offer incentives to get housing built.
So the only DCs that we've allowed are the 10 million in the central city, and there's not that much of them left. I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
The new issue for DCs is that on each development we can now do what we call development agreements, which work out how much subsidy council will provide towards infrastructure versus how much we'll charge possibly in DCs. And so it gets really technical. But
Okay, can I suggest then, continues to not be subsidised by ratepayers except where those subsidies are available to all ratepayers. Is that sensible? I'm not keen to put it in at all. I think we want to be very clear that social housing is not a rates function. So I'd much rather leave it as it is. If they miss out on DCs, bad luck, actually.
But what I can't understand then is, from a logic point of view, why private developers would get ratepayer subsidies, but
Yes, there is
social
that
housing
logic.
wouldn't.
There is a problem with logic in it, yes. Yes.
Or professional sports, or whoever.
Can I just respond to something that Yanni's concerned, that around the DCs, that in fact that would be a slow way of actually adding to the 50 million, which over a period of time needs to go in. So that's why I thought it didn't need to be included there.
I think one of the fundamental things that came out was that people think this is rates funded. I'm very keen to dispel that myth, because it always places social housing at risk, among other things. And also because it's not true. So I'm not keen that I'm happy that it's not subsidised. It's just tough for the council. Glenn.
By the way, just on that, the flip side of this, actually, because people are happy to say this, and I'm not debating, but just pointing out the flip side of this is selling off the asset means the tenant's subsidising the rate payments.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
why we've
think
got it
people
both ways.
kind of,
Okay, are we on questions, revisions, or, yeah?
7.2.1, which is not subsidised by ratepayers. Could we just make that by rates? Because everything
Yes.
else there is saying rates.
Yes.
So let's just
Yes.
keep it really simple and straightforward, which it's probably not now, but...
Yes, and I don't think needs necessary. Can we take out the remains as a separate fund, or that remains unsubsidised by rates, or remains not
I thought
subsidised
which
by
is
rates?
not subsidised by rates. So-
Yeah. Is
Like the separate
Okay,
fund.
right, leave it in.
Because to me,
That's fine.
Because we've got a ring-fenced fund, I think that we should qualify as a community housing provider. And I think to continue hammering that point home would only advantage our case.
Right, fair enough, good point. Okay, are we ready to actually debate this or maybe even move it? Yep.
Thank you. Just one final question, if I may be with other staff as well as Peter. It's just over the ownership question. I just want to be 100% satisfied that by way of lease we are retaining 100% ownership of our land and buildings, and actually the 49-51 split is in the operational part. So I just need to be, because that's a core kind of
So
value.
when you lease something, you still own it?
Yes, you do.
Yes,
But
yes. We still own the houses.
There is this understanding that if we go ahead with the operational sell down, that represents a total sell down. So we're just talking about an operational split, yes. But in terms of broad ownership of the assets,
we retain ownership and lease to the entity.
Yep. Okay.
Except for any housing or land that you put into the entity.
Yep.
Obviously.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be 49-51
Yep.
in terms of the entity. It could be 49-20-31
Yes.
or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, this probably should be moved by somebody who was on the hearings panel. Glenn. Pauline. Okay. Okay. Right. Any debate or we have Glenn first?
Can I say a few words? I'll try not to be too long.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I just want to stand up for this too.